If you're a man who wants to dress better than just your average NPC, but the only thing you feel like you really get exposed to is all of this kind of stuff that's a lot more aggressive, I want to show you how to be able to improve your style in a way that feels authentic and doesn't feel performative. Now, I think all of these looks are great, and maybe you do too, but they feel like they're at a level like 10, and you want to go from maybe a 4 to a 7 or to an 8 instead of going all the way into this territory. So the first thing I want to show you is this guy up here. Notice that this is a relatively casual fit. He's in a t-shirt. Yeah, these are trousers as opposed to jeans, and that's like taking it up another level if you want to go there. But even if you were to do this in just a pair of jeans, this is great. But then notice that he's also got these sneakers on. These are not your normal gym shoes. These are a classic trainer. Yeah, 40, 50 years ago they were gym shoes, but they're made out of natural materials. They've got a different silhouette. It looks and feels different than if you're just walking around in your on clouds or your gym sneakers. Now, you'll also notice with this guy that he's in a relatively slim fit, which is fine. This is not skinny. This doesn't look like he's trapped in 2016, but trends have started to move towards something that's a little bit baggier and a little bit fuller. And if you want to embrace that, then this is a good example of how to do that without getting into like costume territory. Notice that the sleeves on his t-shirt are longer. It's another size bigger. He's got the double pleats on the trousers. Everything's just a little bit fuller without looking like he's rocking a pair of Jankos and like a triple XL t-shirt. Down here, you can see one of the best and easiest changes you can make. Leave your synthetic polos for the golf course. And that doesn't mean that you have to go to like the PK cotton ones that don't really breathe very well in the summer, but go for a knit polo or something that's in this territory where it's got all that texture to it and it's breathable. Not only is it going to wear more comfortably, but it's also going to look more dignified, a little bit more grown up, and a lot more intentional. And then over here with Redford, one of the things that's worth doing is polos and t-shirts are great. Keep them in your wardrobe, especially if they're made out of natural materials. But it's worth it to experiment with a little bit of button ups. And I don't mean dress shirts. There's a big difference between dress shirts and like a casual, in this case, even more of like a rugged button up. And so, really light wash denims, stuff that's really lightweight that way, a chambray, something else that feels a little bit more like a work shirt, something that was worn by blue collar guys 50, 60, 80 years ago, is going to still feel not as formal and a little bit more lived in and a little bit more doable. Same thing with just like a good Oxford weave, like an Oxford cloth button down. Notice that all of these guys are wearing almost entirely natural materials. There are no synthetics here. That is one of the biggest differences you can make. In fact, if you don't do anything else, just swap out all of your synthetics for natural materials. But notice that there's not a ton of like pattern or color or super interesting statement pieces in here. Your style doesn't have to be visually attention getting in order to be good. It just has to make you look like a man who cares about himself.